Decades now, one question has split Wichita right down the middle, and it's, are you an East Sider or a West Sider? It's a debate that pops up sometimes when you hang out with friends from the other side, and you might talk about it in the stands at Friday night football games. And of course, I see people mention it down in the comments section of every Cake and WCH Facebook post. It's mainly playful, but sometimes it gets a little bit heated, and it's always rooted in pride for where people live. And if you live here, you'll probably hear people say, oh, you live on the wrong side of town. But what does that even mean in 2025? Well, today we're going to settle it for good, or at least get as close as we can. I've looked at everything from the history, the schools, crime stats, housing, food scene, and just the overall culture of both sides of Wichita. We're gonna be putting numbers up against stereotypes, the actual stats against people's opinions. And after weeks of research, talking with locals, and analyzing the 2025 data, I'm going to break it all down for you. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly which side of Wichita might be the best fit for you and your family, so let's get into it. Okay, to really understand this East versus West debate, you've got to realize that it's less about a line on a map and more about kind of like a state of mind. But if you just look at a map, the divider is usually considered to be just I-135 that goes down the middle of the city, but the cultural split runs way deeper than just concrete and exit ramps. For generations, Wichitans have tended to pick one side of the city and really just stick over there. It created these two little bubbles inside one small big city, and each with its own rhythm, traditions, and personality. And I'm just gonna call out these stereotypes because it's kind of what fuels the rivalry of East versus West. For example, the classic picture of the East Sider is someone that's probably a little more affluent, maybe even labeled a little more rich or snobby. They might shop at Bradley Fair every day, grab dinner at Chester's, and they're definitely not crossing the interstate unless they're heading out of town. I think people overall imagine East Siders living in established, older neighborhoods with a faster and maybe more commercially connected lifestyle. But the West Sider stereotype is definitely maybe more blue collar and I would say more down to earth. When you think of someone who lives on the West Side, you probably think of someone who loves wide open spaces, Friday night lights, and weekends out at Cheney or Lake Afton. And they often live in newer, more suburban communities, at least in Wichita proper, where life slows down a little bit and the focus is really on family. But I should say both of these stereotypes are a bit oversimplified, but they exist for a reason and they were kind of shaped by how each side developed independently. The East Side, especially Northeast Wichita, historically attracted a lot of the city's wealthier families, and that's why you see grand historic homes in places like College Hill and Forest Hills, plus exclusive neighborhoods that carry a lot of prestige. Meanwhile, the West Side has really kind of become the new frontier. As Wichita expanded west, initially it was all farmland out there, so developers really had a blank canvas to work with. And with that, they've built tons of new subdivisions for families who wanted more modern layouts, bigger lots, and a community that they could grow into together. So all that being said, that's the past, but what does the vibe actually feel like in 2025? I would say today, the East Side feels a bit more established, maybe a little bit more commercial, and tied into the heartbeat of downtown. In general, I'd say you're definitely closer to Old Town, Interest Bank Arena, and the city's cultural core. And then when I head out west, I would say it feels a bit newer, especially around Mays Road, for example. It's a lot more spacious and more suburban, and the neighborhoods feel like they're very centered around families, school, and outdoor activities. It's hard to say that one is necessarily better than the other, but they are undeniably different in how they feel, and that's what makes this debate a little interesting. So when it comes to deciding where you want to live, housing is usually the first thing families are looking at, and it's also where the East versus West divide becomes a little bit more clear. Let's start on the East Side. So if you love history, character, and tree-lined streets, neighborhoods like College Hill, Crown Heights, Eastboro, Vicarage, Brook Hollow, Forest Hills, and Shady Brook are all Wichita classics. These are a lot of my personal favorite areas, and they have a lot of charm. You can think of stuff like brick streets, mature trees, and homes that feel like they've got a real story to tell. And if prestige and luxury are things that you're after, East Wichita has some of the city's most high-end communities. Places like Oak Creek, Foliage, Lake Point, the waterfront area, Savannah, Flint Hills National, Shady Brook, and Wilson Estates are home to some of the largest and most exclusive properties in the entire metro. These neighborhoods are where you'll see a lot of big custom builds, golf course homes, and price points that reflect the status of people who want to live there. Now, swinging over to the West Side, this is where new construction and affordability really shines, but don't let that fool you. West Wichita has a lot of luxury options as well, especially if you're into lake-style living. Communities like Emerald Bay, Sandcrest, Barefoot Bay, Pier 37, the new Castaway, and the Coves All offer lakefront homes with private docks and resort-style amenities. And beyond the water, upscale neighborhoods like Cypress Point, Watercrest, and Talia offer high-end homes with modern layouts and tons of amenities. At the same time, West Wichita is also packed with a lot of family-friendly new subdivisions where your dollar stretches quite a bit further. You'll typically find bigger homes, newer designs, and larger lots compared to the east side, especially in places like Goddard and Mays. So considering all this, which side comes out ahead in the housing category? Well, if you want historic charm and established neighborhoods, the east side definitely has an edge. Those neighborhoods like College Hill, Crown Heights, Eastboro, Brook Hollow, Forest Hills, they're all very timeless and something that you really only find in East Wichita. But if you want waterfront luxury and modern family living, West Wichita is really hard to beat with its lake communities and sprawling new subdivisions. So I'd say the truth is both sides are strong investments overall, and Wichita's market has been very steady. So whether you're buying a historic home in College Hill or a lakefront property in Sandcrest, you're probably in pretty good shape. It really just comes down to the lifestyle that you want to have. Do you want the character and history of the east side or the more modern energy and lake-like vibe of the west side? Okay, let's move on to another important factor, because for a lot of families, schools are the deciding factor when it comes to choosing where they want to live. And in Wichita, this is where the rivalry between East and West gets a bit more interesting. Let's start on the east side. So East Wichita has long had a reputation for academic excellence, especially when it comes to private school options. You've got Wichita Collegiate, the Independent School, Trinity Academy, and Cape and Mount Carmel, which are all names with serious reputations for academics, athletics, and alumni programs. So if you're a parent who wants prestige, tradition, and a proven track record, you'll often lean towards these types of schools. Public schools on the east side also carry quite a bit of weight, especially if you go beyond the city limits. For example, Andover public schools are among the most sought after in the entire state, with consistently high rankings and strong extracurricular programs. But if you're inside Wichita proper, you've also got some solid options as well, though it really depends on which neighborhood you land in, since East Wichita overlaps with a lot of parts of the Wichita USD 259 school district. Okay, now let's talk about the west side. So if you're looking for strong public schools with newer facilities and booming programs, the west side is kind of where it's at. Mays and Goddard school districts are two of the fastest growing in all of Kansas, and for a good reason. Families love the combination of strong academics, competitive sports, and modern, well-equipped campuses. For example, May South High and Goddard Eisenhower both have built really strong reputations in the last decade, and enrollment just seems to keep climbing. The west side also has its own private options as well, like Bishop Carroll Catholic High School, which is one of the biggest names in the area. It's got a fiercely loyal alumni base and sports programs that often make headlines. And many families choose their neighborhood specifically so their kids can attend Bishop Carroll. So how do you pick a winner when it comes to school districts? On the east side, you're choosing prestige and tradition. If your goal is one of Wichita's top private schools or the highly rated Andover School District, this side makes a really strong case. On the west side, on the other hand, you're choosing modern growth and family-centered public schools. Districts like Mays and Goddard keep building new schools, upgrading facilities, and expanding programs to match the new demand. But the truth is, both sides can deliver excellent education. It just depends on your priorities. Do you want some of the highest rated private schools, or do you want the modern growth and energy that Mays and Goddard provide? Either way, east or west, Wichita families have a lot of great choices, and that's why this debate stays so alive, because there really isn't just a clear loser. And hey, real quick, if you're enjoying this video, would you please give it a like and consider subscribing? I make new videos about Wichita, what it's like to live here, and the different things happening around town, and I'd love to keep you in the loop. And you can also check out my free weekly email newsletter. I'll drop a link in the description below, as well as some other free resources I've made for you. So let's continue with the video. All right, now let's talk about something that's a little bit more serious, and that is crime and safety on the east side versus the west side. And for most families, this is one of the biggest factors in choosing where they want to live. And the truth is, Wichita as a whole does have a crime rate that is higher than the national average. But here's the key. The safety can change a lot from one neighborhood to the next. So just saying that east is safer or west is safer doesn't really tell a full story. So let's dive in and see what the numbers are actually showing us. So according to crimegrade.org, the safest parts of Wichita are generally on the suburban outskirts away from the city center, which is pretty typical for most cities as the population density gets a little bit less as you move out. For example, they rate the southeast part of the city as some of the safest overall, where your chance of being a victim of crime might be as low as 1 in 44. But if you compare that to certain central neighborhoods in Wichita, that number can jump anywhere to about 1 in 10, which is a huge difference. On the east side, suburbs like Bel Air and Andover consistently show up as some of the lowest crime areas in the entire metro. Bel Air in particular has one of the lowest violent crime rates in all of Sedgwick County, and that lines up with what people expect in higher value suburban areas. But it's not all perfect. Wichita Police Department's Patrol East has flagged hotspots around some commercial corridors for gun crime, but the department has launched specific initiatives in those areas, and the most recent WPD reports actually show gun crime dropping in those neighborhoods significantly. And then over on the west side, you see a similar story. Suburbs like Mays and Goddard are known for being extremely safe, and both fall well below the metro and national averages. And according to the FBI Uniform Crime Reports, both cities consistently report some of the lowest violent crime numbers in the entire country. These are the kinds of places where families let their kids ride their bikes to school or spend weekends at the park without much worry. And that being said, just like East Wichita, certain older central parts of West Wichita do see higher crime rates. But here's an interesting stat to consider. So Neighborhood Scout data shows the southwest part of Wichita records some of the fewest total crime incidents in the entire city, but that's partly because of population density. There's just fewer people, which means fewer crimes happen overall. Okay, so how do you decide if the east or the west side is more safe? Well, honestly, I would say it's a draw in this category because both East and West Wichita have very safe suburbs on their outskirts, places like Bel Air, Andover, Mays, Goddard, and both sides also have pockets closer to the center that face some bigger challenges. So the most accurate way to put it is that the further you get out into the suburbs, the safer it tends to be. So if safety is at the top of your list, you'll find great options on either side. You just want to be intentional about which neighborhood that you choose. All right, let's move on because life isn't just about schools and houses. It's also about what you do on a Friday night or a sunny Saturday afternoon. And this is another area where the East versus West Wichita rivalry really shows up. Let's start with the east side. So East Wichita is without question the commercial and culinary heart of the city, I would say. If you're a foodie or a coffee person, the east side gives you a ton of options. Personally, I love spots like Chester's for a nice dinner, George's French Bistro for a date night, or grabbing brunch at Homegrown. You've also got a lot of great local hangout spots like Coffee Days, Larcher's Market, Dempsey's Burger Pub, and Red Rock Canyon Grill. So it's not just chains, you've got some really good solid mix of local favorites. And when it comes to things to do, the east side has no shortage. Beyond shopping at Bradley Fair or the waterfront, you've got family-friendly spots like the Great Plains Nature Center, Topgolf, and the Wichita Sports Forum. And then there's other cool spots like Bliss, which is a rock climbing facility. Plus, on the east side, you've also got a quick drive to downtown where you've got that Old Town nightlife, Interest Bank Arena, and places like the Orpheum Theater. So whether it's grabbing coffee, catching a concert, or letting the kids burn off energy at the Sports Forum, East Wichita has you covered. Okay, now let's head to the west side. So the west side might not have as many fine dining options, but it shines with a lot of local gyms and outdoor food. Restaurants like Kobe's, Aroma Coffee House, and 6S are staples for our family personally. And as a family, we're consistently at the Sedgwick County Zoo or Botanica Gardens, not just once in a while, but pretty regularly. Between the seasonal events, the kids' activities, and just the normal visits, these spots are a huge part of what life is for families on the west side. But West Wichita does have a unique advantage, and that is the ability to have a lake life. So if you've got friends in communities like Castaway, Emerald Bay, or Barefoot Bay, chances are you've been out on the water for some boating, tubing, or skiing. And that's something that you really only get on the west side of town unless you're willing to drive out to Cheney or El Dorado Lake. Living in a lake community makes summer weekends a lot more fun, and it's just a lifestyle that doesn't exist anywhere else in the entire metro area except on the west side. So which lifestyle is better, west or east? Well, if you want upscale dining, nightlife, and a more wide variety of things to do, East Wichita is probably the winner in this category. But if you like outdoor recreation, local family spots, and unique lake life, West Wichita is the clear champion in this category. But at the end of the day, it depends on the lifestyle that your family actually wants to have. If your perfect Saturday is grabbing coffee at Coffee Days before heading downtown for a concert, you'll feel right at home on the east side. But if your weekend looks more like taking the kids to the zoo, hanging out with friends at Botanica, and maybe hopping on a boat at Castaway, then the west side is gonna be your clear winner. All right, we've compared the numbers, but not everything about east versus west fits neatly into categories like housing, schools, or crime. Some of the biggest differences come down to the intangibles like the vibe of the area, the community spirit, and even how each side sees the future developing. Let's start with how it feels to live on each side of town. On the east side, there's definitely a sense of history and tradition. There's families that have been there for generations in neighborhoods like College Hill or Eastboro that carry a lot of pride and a more conservative energy overall. They're closer to the core of downtown, so life feels a little bit faster, busier, and maybe more connected to the city's cultural heartbeat. And East Siders often take pride in having the city's most established neighborhoods, longest standing schools, and top restaurants right at their doorstep. And then over on the west side, the energy is a little bit different. I would say it's more about the community spirit and building something new together. West Wichita is full of young families moving into new neighborhoods. Think about seeing lots of kids on bikes, Friday night football, neighborhood cookouts, and a sense that everyone's kind of growing up together. But now let's talk about the future. So Wichita's growth patterns play out differently on each side, I would say. On the east side, you've got a mix of beautifully maintained historic areas alongside some older commercial corridors that are probably feeling a little bit neglected. And there's always talks about revitalization projects, but I would say the progress feels a little bit slow. But on the west side, the story is all about expansion right now. There's tons of new subdivisions that keep pushing further out, and places like Goddard and Mays are transforming from small towns to what feels like more of a full-blown suburban city. And that's really exciting for families moving in, but it also raises some questions from people who like the small town feel and don't like to see all of this new development coming to town. So ultimately, the intangibles are a bit subjective, and some people love the history, tradition, and faster pace on the east side, while others prefer the more laid-back, community-driven vibe of the west side. It really just depends what atmosphere you're going for and what is the right fit for your family. So after all of that, after pitting the east against the west in housing, schools, crime, food, fun, and the overall vibe, where does that leave us? So which side of Wichita is truly better in 2025? And here's my honest answer. The best side of Wichita is just the one that best fits you and your family, which I know sounds like a bit of a cop-out, but there's a reason this debate has lasted for decades and probably will continue. And it's because both sides offer a pretty awesome quality of life that is just a little bit different from the other. So let's do a quick little recap. The east side was better if you want more established luxury housing, and it's a little unmatched as far as the shopping, dining, and cultural options. The west side, on the other hand, took the crown for more affordable, modern family housing and the outdoor recreational options in lake life. And then schools was basically a tie because East has prestige and long-standing private options, while the West has booming public districts and brand new facilities. Safety is also probably a tie because both sides feel very safe in the suburbs, and it really just depends on the neighborhood that you choose. And then the intangibles is really just up to you. Those are subjective by definition. It's if you want more historic tradition and city energy, or new growth and a tight-knit suburban feel. The truth is, there's really no wrong side of town. It's just about finding the side that fits your family the best. But I'm interested to hear what you have to say. Are you team east side or team west side? Drop your allegiance in the comments below. I want to know which people have stronger feelings about which one. But if you're still not sure and you want to compare all of the stats and things to do on each side of town, I've got a really good free resource called my Wichita Community Guide. I'll drop a link in the description below, as well as some other free goodies that you can check out. But that's all for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.